So what are some of the issues that you guys identified? What were some of the things you were talking about when you were grouped up? I heard some of you actually raising some pretty good, pretty interesting questions. Anybody?
Well, I mean, God obviously isn't happy with his life because he constantly wants to stare at the women that's on the ground. He always wants to fly it.
Okay.
He wants to be in the air flying.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I guess his wife is kind of curious, like why is he happy with his life? And then when he does get the job in the factory, he gets a little happy about it, but not too, not so excited. And then he wants to be able to have his son a set life so that he doesn't have to have a life like him.
Okay.
So he wants to put him on the list, but his wife doesn't want him to be on the list because he wants better for his son, because his son, or her son, can recite the lines. He knows how to do it. He can do it from memory. She wants better for him. She wants to not have his life like her husband's, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we started with the balloon, and it seems like sort of where we're locating most of your actual analysis here is in family relationships. And I think the balloon is probably in some way related to family relationships here. But let's try and see how we can connect these dots, right? So do we have anything that looks like maybe like an important binary in the family? Maybe, does there seem to be a kind of pair of opposites somewhere in this little family here?
Father and son.
Okay, why did you say father and son?
He has no problem reciting the lines, and the father kind of struggles pronouncing the name of
Okay.
the revolutionary. Yeah.
Okay. Where else do we see differences between the father and son?
The father is like, he does everything. Like, he pretty much does everything. And he kind of mocks at it. Like, he kind of picks at the son, like, are you going to forget your lines on the day? Because every night the son forgets his lines. So he mocks, like, the son. But at the same time, he questions himself. Like, he also questions himself. And the father, and the voice is like, I can do it, I can do it.
Okay. So the boy seems to have a more positive attitude about what he's capable of and what he can do than the father. Okay, what about differences in behavior between the two of them? If we see like the very beginning of the story, right? What's happening? Yeah, making dinner, right? Lily is making dinner. She's spreading cornmeal mush on banana leaves and putting chopped herring on it. Sounds delicious, right?
Father gets home from work. He's like, I got something to say. And the son's like, let me tell you what I got to say.
Yeah. And is this the first and only time that the son steals the father's thunder?
No.
Yeah. The son interrupts a couple of times and prevents the father from telling his news until before they go to bed, right? And what is the little boy's attitude towards the food? Like, what's more important, his lines or his dinner?
His lines.
Yeah. The lines are the most important, and perhaps what the lines represent, whereas the father really just wants to eat, right? Right, if we look at this first passage where a guy comes home on page 226, right, listen to what happened today, a guy said as he barged through the rattling door of his tiny shack. His wife, Lily, was squatting in the middle of their one-room home, spreading cornmeal mush on banana leaves for their supper. Listen to what happened to me today. Guy's 7-year-old son, little Guy, dashed from a corner and grabbed his father's hand. The boy dropped his composition notebook as he leaped to his father, nearly stepping into the corn mush and herring that his mother had set out in a trio of half-gourds on the clay floor. So the little boy is treating the dinner very, very carelessly, right? Not interested in it, doesn't care about it. This is more important. Because what is on his mind? The play. And what are the lines in the play supposed to represent? What's the play about? Freedom. Right? What is on your mind? Supper, Guy whispered, enviously and eyeing the food cooling off in the middle of the room. He and the boy looked at each other and began to snicker. Tell us the other thing that is on your mind, Lily said, joining in their laughter. Freedom, shouted the boy as he quickly stepped into his role. So the boy cares much more about the lines that represent freedom. The father, at least at this point, is more concerned with what's on the table and getting more of it, right? I mean, what is his news? Yeah, he's got a job for the day at the sugar mill. Right, so he's got 1 day's temp work at the local sugar mill. So the son gets to play the part of a revolutionary, while the father will be spending his day cleaning toilets at the sugar mill. So we're looking at a very different set of life possibilities here, right? The boy's still all potential. The father seems to have hardened into adulthood, right? Where else do we see references to that maybe seem to mix the two of them up, right? Are there places where the little boy seems to take the father's place or vice versa?
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
The Bible mentions like while the wife being judged, he mentioned how it's kind of sexual, but he mentioned how that he can't even picture himself sucking his naked boobs. How he
yes.
Like he can only see his son. Like,
yeah.
They're not even
because she nursed the son for 2 years, right? He sees her naked body, he doesn't find her all that sexy anymore, right? So the son took that from him too. But then, as he's dreaming about the balloon in the field near the sugar mill, right? He falls asleep and he's drooling on her chest, right? Much like a nursing child. So there are images here that kind of bring the two of them together, right? This image of the nursing child. And how does the father respond to the lines that the son speaks?
He cries the first time.
Yeah. Right, the lines are inspiring, right? They awaken strong. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say, is he inspired or is he sad?
What do you think?
Well, it depends on what you think happened at the end of the story.
And what do you think happened at the end of the story? This gets to another big question here,
I
right?
think he killed himself.
Okay. Why do you think that it's suicide?
Because I see the worst in everything.
It was the only way he could actually be free from his circumstances and the way he was feeling about everything.
Yeah, I mean, the balloon, right? How does a balloon work? Yeah, a hot air balloon, yeah, you light a fire underneath it, right? And the fire makes it rise into the air. And what are the little boy's speeches all about? What's the central image in the little boy's lines? A wall of fire, right? A wall of fire rising. So the father is, yeah, clearly equating this balloon with freedom, right? So why doesn't he just take the balloon off someplace else as he was dreaming? Why jump out of it?
His wife had wanted him to, if he could fly away with the balloon, his wife wanted him to take her and the son with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he wasn't feeling it.
Yeah, he gives...
I thought they were better off without him, since he couldn't really fly with them.
But, you know, does he have to be dead for them to be without him?
Oh.
That was his form of escape or freedom.
Okay, in what sense then is death perhaps a more appropriate form of freedom for him than simply flying away in the balloon would be?
Because I guess he couldn't see anytime soon his situation changing. Maybe for his son, but not for himself. And like he said, his father and his father's father.
Mm-hmm. I remember my father was a man I did not want to be like. Yeah.
Because he lived his entire life in poverty. And I guess he saw the same pattern repeating itself. And I don't know, I guess he thought he was at least going to be free before he died. Or, I mean, before he was at least going to go in the air balloon before he, go in the sky before he died.
Okay, so he's getting that taste of freedom before he just hurls himself to the ground?
Yes.
Well, what else do we know about the balloon?
It's owned by the guy that owns the ship.
Yeah, the balloon belongs to somebody else. So even if he takes off in the balloon, it's not his. It belongs to somebody else. It belongs to the guy who owns the sugar mill. Yep, this young Assad. Now, does anybody know anything about the history of Haiti and why there's so much reference here to sugar cane, sugar pulp, and a sugar mill?
It's like, it was like slavery, but then, I think they overthrew it, but they all formed out there.
Yeah, essentially, slaves were brought to the Caribbean in the first place to grow and harvest sugar cane and to process it and send it back to Europe, right? So this is all reminiscent of the slave economy that the island was originally kind of built on, right? Once the native population was dealt with through disease or what have you. So, yeah, all the references to sugar are a reminder of slavery, and the sugar mill overshadows everything, right? He was born in the shadow of the sugar mill. Every place they go is near the sugar mill. There's no getting away from that sugar mill. Even the balloon itself, his means of escape, his means to freedom, is owned by the guy who owns the sugar mill. So everything is a reminder of slavery, of bondage, of, being stuck in a rut that you can't get out of. That your life is somehow not your own. Now, do we see, you mentioned sort of repeating patterns. Do we see Guy doing something with the members of his family that involves sort of repetitive patterns, some physical action that he's always doing with members of his family?
Stroking their hair.
Yeah, and when he does, what does he do? When he's stroking someone else's hair or playing with somebody's arm, what does he tend to do? He makes little circles with his finger, right? So he actually draws patterns on other people. And it's significant that they're circles too, right? What might be significant about a circle? What do we know know, what qualities does a circle have?
There's no break.
Yeah, no break, no beginning or end.
A reference to like the cyclical pattern he sees in himself. And
Yep.
his son.
Cyclical, no beginning or end. And if you're in one, no break, no way out. So he's kind of inscribing his hopelessness constantly on the bodies of his wife and son. Now, do we see other images here that suggest a trap or a prison atmosphere?
There's a fence around the mill.
Yeah, there's a fence around the mill. What about what does the social life of the shanty town they live in seem to be like? What does it center around?
The news at 8 o'clock, right?
Yep, 8 o'clock news. But no one owns a TV, right? So how do they watch it?
And then big lights on the big screen that's kind of directed by the guy that owns it.
Yeah, the state owns a TV, right? That a policeman shows up and unlocks for the 8 o'clock news and then locks up when the news is over. Right, if you look on page 230, right, near the sugar mill, because everything's near the damn sugar mill, was a large television screen and an iron grill cage that the government had installed so that the shantytown dwellers could watch the state-sponsored news at 8 o'clock every night. So first off, right, as we noted already, the TV is locked up. And what's the only thing they're allowed to watch on it? The news. And this is state-sponsored news as well, right? So the only information they're getting, the only information that comes into their town is what the government allows. Right? Everything here is somehow restricted. Your freedom of movement is restricted. You can't get away from the sugar mill. The only source of jobs is the sugar mill. Right? You can't even watch anything on the television apart from the state-sponsored news. Everything's locked up. Everything's a prison. And so then we juxtapose that against the little boy's speech, right? Can somebody read the speeches for us? Start with speech 1, and then go on to speech 2. Anybody can just start.
Wall of fire is rising, and the ashes to see the bones of my people. Not only those people whose dark, hollow faces I see daily in the fields, but all those souls who have gone ahead to haunt my dreams. Tonight I relive once more the last caresses from the hand of the loving Father, a valiant love and a beloved friend.
All right, good. So we've already noted the wall of fire image in here, right? Anything else that seems relevant to either this prison atmosphere or the relationship between the father and the son?
Talk about last caresses of the hand of his father.
Okay, yeah, last caresses from the hand of a loving father. which seems perhaps to reference the little circles Guy is always drawing in his son's hair, right? But could also perhaps reference the ear twisting that occurs later on, right, when the boy is mumbling and the father can't hear. So there's also, right, punishment from the father when he thinks the little boy is making fun of him. All right, what about the second speech?
There is so much sadness in the faces of my people. I have called on their gods, now I call on our gods. I call on our young, I call on our old. I call on our mighty and the weak. I call on everyone and anyone, so that we shall all utter our one piercing cry, that we may either live freely or we should die.
All right, thank you very much. So, why does he utter these two speeches when he's looking at his father's dead body on the ground? What does the father's death do to the son? What does it inspire in the son?
I mean, it makes him realize, like, why you never die.
Okay. When we think about the way the two are described as sort of opposites of one another, they have, very different hair, very different concerns, very different reactions to, for example, the news that they have to give, very different reactions to the supper. There are places we noted though where they do change places, right? The little boy, for example, has nursed the mother's breasts into a less attractive state, but the father falls asleep drooling on them the night before he steals the balloon. So who's in which place at the end of the story? What's happened between father and son? Yeah, father and son have exchanged roles. Right? The trapped boy, the child, constrained by the world, is dead, and the man is emerging in the son. Right? The adult is emerging in the son. The father's death allows for that. The father's death, in a way that recalls the images of this freedom speech, allows for that. Now, there are some problems, potentially, with this analysis, right? There are some holes in any analysis. There are some problems. Where do the lines, for example, come from?
A romantic European guy.
Yeah.
Stuff down in a fancy way.
Exactly, yeah. These are not the actual words of the probably illiterate slave revolutionary bookman, right? These are words placed in his mouth by some French writer of textbooks. So the lines themselves, as inspiring as they are also kind of a historical fraud. So, we're running short on time, so I don't want to belabor this, but that's one other question you could ask about this. So what? That the little boy's great inspiration at the death of his father, is in a way a lie. Right? Does this suggest, perhaps, that little Guy is not going to break free from the cycle that his father tried to get out of? Just to depress all of you immensely before for how many of you is this your last class before the weekend starts? Okay, just about all of you. So go forth on that cheery note that no one can ever be free.
I feel like it ended kind of sad.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like as a little boy, that kind of shock probably like woke him up to like realize that, you know, I don't know, it left that kind of undertone that like maybe this isn't the end for the boy. Like maybe this was this. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, and that's yeah. I mean, that is a possible reading. But I'm trying to complicate that reading a little bit by pointing out the lines themselves are kind of based on a lie, right? Yes. Yes, I do.